Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Paper Be Gone studios for the Sports Source. We're happy to have you joining us today. We got a lot to talk about. The Tennessee basketball team suffered a costly loss yesterday if you're looking at SEC title races. If you're looking at seeding, maybe not so much. We'll discuss how costly yesterday's loss was and what the Tennessee outlook is for bracketology with a couple of weeks to play before the tournaments begin. We're also going to talk, we got David Ubben here today. In case you didn't hear it, he wrote a piece this week in The Athletic about collectives and how they're taking over the college sports world, raising money for NIL to give to players. It's an interesting story, so we're going to talk a lot about that and how Tennessee may or may not be at the cutting edge of the NIL game. So we got a lot to discuss. It's going to be some stuff that's going to make your eyes pop out of your head, I think, in some of the numbers we're talking today and some of the facts we're going to put on the screen for you. Let's get right into it. First segment of our program brought to you by the folks at Paper Be Gone. When it comes to getting junk out of your house or your office, you call Junk Be Gone. Now, when you need documents shredded and taken away, when you need hard drives destroyed, you got a computer, it's like, I can't just throw this thing away. You need the hard drive destroyed. These guys do it. You call Paper Be Gone. They get rid of it. They handle it for you. Trust Mike Such and his team just as much as I do. They have never let me down on any front. Great company, locally owned, family owned since it opened. Mike Such does a great job, and we appreciate him being a big part of this show. Paper Be Gone. PaperBeGone.com to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists we have today. We have a couple more guys waiting in the green room, if you will. We have former Vol basketball player Isaiah Victor. Isaiah, thanks for being back.
Thanks for having me.
Right there, Mark Pankratz, former Vol assistant coach, former D1 basketball player at Milwaukee. Mark, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Right
there from 99.1 The Sports Animal, we have Jimmy Himes. Jimmy, thank you for being here. And next to you, I'm not giving you time to say anything. Next to you, we got Ryan Callahan down there from GoVols247.com. Thanks to you as well. Tennessee loses 58-48. 48 points in Arkansas yesterday. It was each team's lowest point output of the season. The Vols shot 27% from the floor and just 16%, 4 of 24 from three-point range. Arkansas was the hot team yesterday, shooting 30% and 22% from three. We have discussed this before. Tennessee's defense is so good that they have a good record, even when they shoot poorly. We showed the numbers. Tennessee can shoot poorly and still win. They just can't shoot god-awful. Yesterday was god-awful, and the crazy thing about this team is they shoot god-awful a lot. They haven't in the last couple of weeks, but yesterday was one of those that fit the mold. This team's been so inconsistent, as you know, but we wanted to put some numbers to it. Here's the top half of the conference. The average points in the country is about 71 points right now. So I wanted to see who's 10 points over that, who's 10 points under that the most. All right, Kentucky, 13 games at 81 points or more. You've got 61 points under just once. Auburn, 13-2. Arkansas, 10-1. Tennessee 7-4, and if you go down the list, it's not just that Tennessee's, well, they're lower scoring. Okay, I get it. If you go further down the list, the bottom of the league, they don't have high scores, but you don't have that. You don't have the range that you do with Tennessee. Tennessee has more of the 81 or more and 61 or less than anybody else in the league. When they're good, they're very good. When they're bad, they're very bad. Wild swings. Mark, you said it a few weeks ago. This team will pretty much only go as far as their shooting takes them because they don't really have a plan B. They don't live by pressure defense and junk baskets. They don't have a good inside presence. 9 points yesterday from Huntley Hatfield, Adu, Fulkerson, and Plavsic combined. It's pretty much if they're hitting their shots, they got a good chance. If they're not hitting their shots, they don't have any kind of plan B. Do you still stand by that after what we saw yesterday?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's some excitement around what Adu could bring. You've seen Fulkerson playing better in stints, but the reality is they don't have an inside presence. And then you look at those other teams, a lot of their leadership comes at the point guard position comes from guys that are juniors and seniors. Our point guards are 2 freshmen, and you're going to have big swings like that. With freshmen and with a lack of interior presence, and then if those guys do get the ball down there, I think Uros went 0 for 4 from the free throw. He just missed free throws, and so if we're not making jump shots, it's tough. And yesterday was a tough rhythm or a tough game to get a rhythm if you're a jump shooter. But we got to be able to make open shots at this level. Our defense is good enough to keep us in games, but if we're not making open shots, it's a tough basketball team to watch offensively.
Isaiah?
I think it's a lot more to it, but definitely it helps when you make shots, of course. Arkansas didn't really make a lot of shots, but they just made them at the right time. They made a few shots at the end of the game. The guy hit a couple of threes. And I focus more on fast break points, and I don't call them junk baskets. I call them gold.
I don't mean that. Gold.
Because I think that's what separates. Because we don't have to go into the half-court game, and we don't have to depend on our offense to kind of get us points. And this offense, everybody's going to be very prepared for.
But do they have enough of the gold that you're looking for on a consistent basis? This just doesn't seem a team to me that can ratchet it up and pull themselves out of a funk and win a game that way consistently. If their shooting's gone for 3 straight nights, I don't think they're going to win 3 straight games by going to putting their press on and getting gold junk baskets at the other end.
Yeah, and I don't think you can judge it off this game because it was a game I was always concerned about. It's an emotional high after beating a number 5 team, rivalry game that you just got beat by close to 30. So the whole time after we beat Kentucky, I was like, man, I hope they're ready for this one.
Yeah.
I knew Coach would talk them up, but it's impossible to have that same energy. You're going to Bud Walton Arena. Everybody's going to have 2 fouls when you walk into place. It's going to be ticky-tack calls that's not going to go your way. And then, at the end of the day, Arkansas is a good team, and they had a really good game plan. And if we make a couple shots and they miss a couple shots, we still win that game.
Well, and I'd like to thank the UT basketball team all year. It seems that they win their good games in the middle of the week and then lose on Saturday. So I would love to sit here and talk about the Kentucky game. Unfortunately, we're on Sunday, so we're stuck talking about Arkansas. Jimmy, I usually don't bring up officiating on this show, and Isaiah's not a guy who really cries about the officials much at all. He mentioned it. I have it in the show. I know it popped up to you yesterday. It wasn't just judgment calls, and that was an issue, too, that Rick Barnes brought up after the game. But there were some black and white, he's standing out of bounds type errors yesterday that they didn't get.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to take 3 steps out of bounds and bat the ball inbounds, standing right next to the official who blew the call. I also thought they missed a number of those block charge calls, and I get it, they're hard to make. One of the things that I thought Arkansas moved under the Tennessee player. They were still moving, which you're not allowed to do. And Rick Barnes said afterward, he said, I hope they got them all right. He said, I hope when I watch the tape, I will feel differently. You're not going to feel differently, because I just thought they missed a lot of calls, and it went both ways. It was almost like, okay, we've called a bunch on Tennessee. Now let's hit Arkansas with a couple here. So I just thought the shooting was bad. The officiating was worse. I just thought it was a really bad game for the refs.
Well, this is the time. Yesterday, you win that basketball game. You're tied with Auburn potentially for the SEC championship. Yep. And so Barnes talked a little bit about it. Like, this is the time of year coaches and players got to be on their A games.
Right.
Officials got to be on their A games. And what drives me crazy, and it's always driving me crazy about it, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid has to go to the media and talk about his performance after a game, good or bad. Coach does. But the officials, as you saw yesterday, have just as much of an impact in some of these games as a player does, as a 19-year-old kid. And they can go back to their locker room, drink their Gatorade, and go on by their way and not have to talk to any media about why they had a bad game. That's not okay. I think officials should have to be able to talk to the media and explain why was it such a bad performance yesterday.
Ryan, your thoughts on the loss yesterday at Arkansas? As Isaiah pointed out, it's not like that was completely unexpected. It's a tough place to go. Arkansas is now tied with you for 3rd place in the SEC. You've been on a long win streak. You were due for a loss. Your thoughts on what happened?
Yeah, I agree, and generally it's a type of game I thought, looking at the schedule, Tennessee would probably lose. It's first of all, Arkansas, a very good team at home, 14-1 going into that one. Tennessee also not a very good team away from Thompson-Boling Arena. That's to me the most concerning trend about this team. Obviously, the shooting is on the surface the main thing, but they've got to get better away from home. You've got to win in tournament play on neutral courts. They're only 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 now, I think, away from Thompson-Boling Arena this year. So just not winning enough games there, and still just inconsistent shooting overall. So again, it's a team that's got a fatal flaw, and it happens to be maybe the biggest one in basketball. And again, the post scoring has to improve. John Fulkerson had played a couple better games recently. To only get 9 points from all your post players combined, not going to win many games that way.
Jimmy, do you want to wrap us up? I know you had some shooting stats. Did you want to get to those, or do you just want to?
Yeah, I'll fire them out. So Tennessee's lost 7 games, and 6 of those they've shot less than 30% from 3-point range. Well, how do you overcome that? You overcome it by trying to make some twos. Well, in 5 of those 6, Tennessee's averaged 42% from the field in 2-point shooting. And they were terrible in 2-point shooting against Arkansas. And that, to me, speaks to that lack of the inside presence that Barnes was talking about. But their 2-point shooting has not been good most of this year, and it has not overcome the bad 3-point shooting games.
All right, when we come back, what do some anonymous SEC coaches have to say about the Vols? Outlet talked to 3 of them this week, and we'll tell you what they said. We'll also start looking at bracketology and some other numbers. That's next. Come on back on the Sports Source.